أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are in the 5th day in this holy month of Ramadan and the first Jumu'ah for Ramadan. May Allah accept our fast. May He accept our du'as. May He accept all the good that we do in this month and give us the full reward for this month. Today, we make dua, a special dua for Sister Sabira Khan, who is celebrating her birthday. We make duas for all the deceased and all the sick persons of this community. And we pray that Allah will give those who are sick a speedy recovery, and for those who have passed away, there will be light and fullness in their graves. Brothers and sisters, please turn your cell phones off. If you have not done that, please do it now. Right? It's not fair for somebody who's leading the salah to be disturbed by your cell phone. You come to the house of Allah. You're trying to speak to Allah. You have your cell phone ringing. We've been asking every week kindly to do this, and people still not doing it. Please, brothers and sisters, please. The sadaqah for this year is $15 per person per house. So if there are 4 persons in the house, then your sadaqah will be $60. And it's on the head of the household to ensure that that sadaqah is paid. We have boxes in front, likewise we have boxes upstairs for the sisters. You can start putting your sadaqah, because your sadaqah goes to help the poor and needy in this community. Also this afternoon, after you finish your salah, the brothers will be at the back. We have a little shed at the back, and we will be doing some food distribution. So those of you who are in need of dry food, kindly go to the back in an orderly manner and collect your food. It's very important for you to go there. You have to sign for it, because we have to keep a record of what is being given out. Brothers and sisters, it's a month of giving, and let us give. Let us even give on behalf of our parents who are not here, who have passed away and might not be able to give. We ask the brothers to come up so that when people come in later on, they can use the engines or have their passage. Try to be off your cell phone as much as possible. Listen to the khatib. It's very important. It says once you enter the masjid on the day of Jumu'ah, you're supposed to be very quiet. You're not supposed to even whisper to the person next to you. Our khatib today is no stranger to us. He's been here with us doing programs. He's been with us every 3rd Friday in the month, delivering the khutbah. He comes from a very far way. He makes a lot of sacrifice to be with us. And I would like to share one thing with you before I give the mic to him, is that he had what is called the Global Ummah Foundation. And the foundation has been doing tremendous work in Africa, bringing potable water to those who cannot drink water or don't have water. In Guyana, I understand they are distributing food to the orphanage and so forth. Our khatib today is no other than our beloved brother, Dr. Shaffieq Chace.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. La أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله قولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وإن خير الهدي هدي محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد يا أيها المسلمين يا عباد الله. All thanks and praises due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, we glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we seek His mercy, His blessings, and we beg for His forgiveness. I testify to the absolute fact that there is no deity, no one worthy of any deification except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for He is indeed alone and has no partners, and whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, none can lead astray, and whomsoever He left astray, none can provide guidance to. And I further attest to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is indeed the last and final messenger. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. He was sent as a mercy, as a compassion, as a benefactor, as an intercessor to all of creation في يوم القيامة. يا أيها المسلمين يا عباد الله. قال الله تعالى في كتاب الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تتقوا الله يجعل لكم فرقانا ويكفر عنكم سيئاتكم ويغفر لكم والله ذو الفضل العظيم. قال الله تعالى في كتاب الكريم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. قال الله تعالى في كتاب الكريم يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. قال الله تعالى في كتاب الكريم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسول الله الكريم. My dear beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you should ask, what is the purpose of this first Jumu'ah, this 5th day of Ramadan, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this ummah with, what is the goal, what is sought out in this month of Ramadan? The answer is undoubtedly taqwa. And if we should recite every verses of Al-Quran Al-Kareem that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cited the word taqwa, I would have to stand here and recite to you 250 verses of Al-Quran Al-Kareem, where the chapter of taqwa, which is Surah Al-Baqarah, in that chapter alone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make reference 36 times of taqwa. So what is taqwa? We hear that taqwa is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we look at Al-Quran Al-Kareem for the definition of taqwa, what is the traits or quality of taqwa? If I look around in front of me, I can see and I can make certain judgment that that person, the way he dressed, maybe he's from Pakistan. That person, maybe he's from Guyana. That person, the way he speaks, maybe he's speaking from this tribe or that tribe. Maybe he's from Lebanon. But what can I see in you, in front of me, that I can say that that is a muttaqi? That person is a muttaqi. What trait or what quality can I see? Because it's not what we dress with. It is not our tongue that we speak. It is not how we look or the wealth that we carry or the status or the pedigree. It all boils down to taqwa. Are we a muttaqi? And what are the traits of a muttaqi? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala profoundly begins Surah Al-Baqarah, the surah of Ramadan, by highlighting the traits of what make you a muttaqi. And if I ask you, what do you think are those traits? We hear that taqwa is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we look at Surah Al-Baqarah, how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the surah? He says, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. He begins the surah by the declaration that this kitab, this Quran that you're about to recite, that you're about to open and you're about to learn, it is a book of hidayah, hudan, with this tanween meaning extreme, the perfect hidayah, the perfect guidance for the muttaqeen. But who's a muttaqeen among us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to ayah 3 and begin to highlight the traits of what make you a muttaqeen. The trait that make you a muttaqeen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. To believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first trait. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ, believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. These are the first three traits or quality of a muttaqeen. If you go to ayah 4 of Surah Al-Baqarah, and this is one of the style, the beauty of the Quran. You see, in all of the surahs of the Quran, there is a mystical connection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins, interesting, with the Quran by saying, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ, that book. He didn't say this book. Rasulullah is saying to the people of Mecca, he's saying to the people of Medina that he's talking about that book, not this book, not hadha. He said, ذَلِكَ, that book, because when Rasulullah was taught, there was no book. Was there any kitab like we have the Musaf here? There was no book at that time. That this kitab, Allah is saying, pointing to that book. Where is that book? That book is in Lawh al-Mahfuz. That this kitab, when it comes and it comes into the form, eventually that it is with us, that book, this book, still have the connection with that book. And that is why this book cannot be destroyed. Because it has that connection with that book. It will always be that book. That is the source of Lawh al-Mahfuz. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to the next surah, Surah Al-Imran, how did he begin the surah? He begins the surah just the way he began with Alif Lam Mim. But then he declares who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. He is Hayyu wa Qayyum. He is the giver of life and he is the qayyum that supports that life. Then he goes back to define what he starts in Baqarah. What book he's talking about? He's talking about what? He's talking about نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل. Yes, this is a month of revelations. It is not a month only of the revelation of the Quran. It is a month of the revelations of all revelations. That is why the next trait of taqwa in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. He said the traits of taqwa is to believe in what was revealed to you and what was revealed before you. What? At-Tawrat wal-Injil. Look at the Quran, subhanAllah. Surah to surah, it's connecting each other. Like if you don't understand how Allah presents it in Baqarah, then He's presenting it in a different way, from a different angle to you in Al-Imran. That you must get it. You have to get it. What this trait of taqwa is. And it's interesting, He begins Baqarah with Muttaqeen and He ends Al-Imran with taqwa. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. That the traits of taqwa is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Guard yourself. Traits of taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to ayah 4 of Surah Al-Baqarah. And He says another three traits of taqwa is to believe in what was revealed to you, what was revealed before you, and believe in Yawm al-Akhir. Allah goes to ayah 21. You see, that book where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to, in ayah 23, immediately He challenged mankind. He challenged all mankind 1400 years ago until now, until the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. You may come up with AI, and AI may be able to write poetry for you. AI may be able to do things that many of us can't do. AI, you can years and years of training in residency, in the medical field, you can actually take an AI and immediately train that AI to do what a doctor was trained for 8 years. But Allah challenged mankind. He says, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِالسُّورَةِ. If you have any power, produce a surah that's coming from the abd of this messenger Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Produce a surah. Produce a surah as inna a'toina, 9 words if you have power. That is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That book, that is the protection of that book. You can destroy all the Quran. President can pledge to destroy the Quran and burn it in front of nations. But you cannot destroy that book. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to ayah 21. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to use the word taqwa in this ayah. In what sense? He says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind, all of humanity now. Ya ayyuhan nas, ubudu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum walladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O mankind, if you want to attain taqwa, not only to the believers, now Allah is addressing all of humanity. Ya ayyuhan nas, that if you want to attain this quality of taqwa, first and foremost, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala min qablikum, like those who worship before you. You getting it? There's a theme that's happening in this Quran talking about taqwa. It's making reference to the previous nation when He talks about us. He's making reference about the previous nation. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to ayah 82, Baqarah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَامِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. That to believe in Allah and to worship Allah. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Another 2 traits of taqwa. To believe in Allah and worship Allah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to ayah 83. And this ayah I want you to pay attention to. Allah is going to teach us the traits of taqwa through the covenant now of Bani Israel. And this is the only ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to highlight 8 traits of taqwa. You see, He gave us 3 traits in Ayah 3. He gave us another 3 traits in Ayah 4. He gave us another trait in Ayah 21. He gave us another 2 traits in Ayah 82. In Ayah 83, he is going to highlight 8 traits of taqwa. And why is this important? Why is it Allah is making reference to the previous nation? And now he's going to give you the traits of taqwa through Bani Israel. وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. And this is not the first time he introduced Bani Israel to us in the Quran. You have to go back to Ayah 40, where he's going to introduce Bani Israel to us. And just to put this into perspective, who we are about to talk about now, Bani Israel. Who is Bani Israel? Allah is going to introduce Bani Israel in Al-Quran for the first time in Ayah 40. He says, يَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَتِي الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ. Ya Bani Israel, remember the favor I bestowed upon you, that fulfill your covenant to me, so I shall fulfill my covenant to you, Ya Bani Israel. It's as if I'm coming to you for a favor, and I have to remind you of what I've done for you. Subhanallah. May Allah protect us from that kind of address in Al-Quran al-Kareem. Allah is going to address Bani Israel and highlights the traits of taqwa through Bani Israel now in Ayah 83. And how did he do this? He says, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. That, Ya Bani Israel, you made a covenant to me that you will not worship none besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And you will be obedient to both of your parents. وَذِي الْقُرْبَى. And you will be good to next of kin. وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. And you will be good to the orphan and the poor. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. And you will say good things to others. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. And you will establish prayer. Bani Israel. This is addressing Bani Israel. That you made a covenant that you will establish salah and you will help the poor. Ya Bani Israel, but you rescinded on your covenant. And most of you do except a few. And you have done this often, Ya Bani Israel. Now my address to you, Ya Ummatu Rasulullah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. If I should replace Bani Israel in front of this ayah, and instead of saying, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ, and if I say to you, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, O you who believe, have you rescinded back also on the covenant of the traits of taqwa? Are you worship those besides Allah? Are you worship only the Lord of Ramadan? Are you only worshipping the Allah of Ramadan? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Are you obedient to your parents? Have you embodied these traits of taqwa? وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَذِي الْقُرْبَى. Are you good to next of kins? Have you solved the matters with your friends and your foes and your relatives before the night of Qadr comes and you lift in your hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَالْيَتَامَى. Have you been helpful to the orphans? There are thousands and millions of orphans in Yemen, in Syria. Now, the death rate is the highest death rate we have seen in modern time that's happening in Gaza. When you ask these children, where is your Abba? Where's your Ummi? They came and they killed my Ummi in front of me. Where was your dad? He was in the room. Then they went and get him and slaughtered him in front of us. That's a yatim. وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Are we fulfilling the traits of taqwa? Are we like Bani Israel? That is why Allah is reminding us about Bani Israel. Even when it comes to our fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to the next ayah, now ayah 84, and I want you to pay attention to this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying now, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ Bani Israel. لَا تَسْفِكُونَ دِمَاءَكُمْ Ya Bani Israel, you made a covenant to me that you will not shed blood on this earth. Ya Bani Israel, you made that covenant. لا تسفكون دماءكم ولا تخرجوا أنفسكم من ديارهم. And you made a covenant, Bani Israel, that you will not drive others out from their homes. Rasulullah is talking about this in Medina. In Medina, 7th century. I can take this to the United Nations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let me remind you that the first premise, the first call to war, to battle in Islam, was a defensive call. It was not an offensive call. The first battle is the Battle of Badr. What was the call? After 13 years of persecution, where the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ cannot say that Rasulullah had lifted a finger or said a hard word in 13 years to Quraysh. Have sabr ya Rasulullah. 13 assassination attempts, social and economic embargo, his children crying the pangs of hunger from the Shibba Valley, while the people in the Haram, right there, you can hear it. It's right at the gate of Marwa, Safa and Marwa. Crying for hunger. Have patience, Ya Rasulullah. 2 years into Medina, have patience, Ya Rasulullah. Now the order came to stand up. And how did the order came to stand up? الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ Surah Al-Hajj, ayah 40. The order come to stand up. And I want you to pay attention to this order. الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ إِلَّا أَنْ يَقُولُوا رَبَّنَا اللَّهُ. That you have been driven out from your homes unjustly, without any justification. This is in 7th century Makkah. As if this ayah, I can use this ayah right now today. الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ إِلَّا أَنْ يَقُولُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ. Except that this Palestinian family, this child, is saying, my Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As if the Meccans of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they were driven out from their homes, they were saying, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. But what did Allah say next? وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ. That had it not been for Allah to take a group of mankind to repel the transgression of others, what would have happened? If Rasulullah did not stand up in Badr, Allah is saying, what would have happened? If you do not stand up now, what will happen? وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ. That had it not for Allah to take a group of people to stand up against the aggression of others. وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ بَعْدَهُمْ بِبَعْدٍ لَهُدِّمَتْ صَوَامِعُ وَبِيَعٌ وَالصَّلَوَاتٌ وَمَسَاجِدُ يُذْكَرُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ. That what would happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the monastery would have been destroyed. Yes? Go to Surah Hajj, ayah 40, and read this ayah. Allah mentions the monastery. What is the monastery? You know what the monastery is. The monastery will be وَبِيَعٌ وَالصَّلَوَاتٌ. The churches will be burned, like we see in the south. The churches will be burned. وَالصَّلَوَاتٌ. The synagogue would be bombed, like we see. وَمَسَاجِدٌ, like the masjid we see are being desecrated in Gaza. We see the masjid in India, or they're being bulldozed. If Allah, وَلَوْلَا دَفْءُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ يَا أُمَّةُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَلَوْلَا دَفْءُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ, where the nations of men that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on that day Rasulullah stood up, on that day Abu Bakr stood with him, on that day Uthman ibn Affan stood with him, on that day Umar al-Faruq stood with him, on that day Ali ibn Abi Talib stood with him. وَلَوْلَا دَفْءُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ. Just before iftar yesterday, I was in front of the City Hall in Westchester County, and there was a protest to stop the genocide. And wallahi, there were but 5 Muslims. 5 Muslims. 5! There was a Jewish man who came confronting a young woman aggressively, saying that he's upset when you address the Jews. She said it's not about the Jews, and it's not about the Jews. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about taqwa among Bani Israel. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Al-Quran al-Kareem, in the 3rd chapter, the Jew, how we recite just a few nights ago, نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we must believe in Al-Quran. We must believe in Al-Tawrah. We must believe in Al-Injil. We must believe in all the prophets. In Musa, in Isa, in all the prophets. Peace and blessing be upon them all. About 5 Muslims. One young woman is standing up while you're eating your iftar and filling your belly in the masjid. Standing up, crying for the children in Palestine. Standing up in front of this man, aggressively confronting her. And the police officer is there. And one of them is going to the police officer and says, aren't you going to come and do something about this? The police officer says he has the right to do what he's doing, as you have the right to protest. She says, but he's threatening us, he's pushing us, he's aggressive. He hasn't hurt you, he hasn't touched you yet. When he touches you, then we will step in. When he smacked you or he slaughtered you, then we will come in and move the body. وَلَوْلَا دَفْءُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ بَعْدَهُ بِبَعْدٍ. This is Islam. You stand up for justice even if the monastery has been affected, even if the churches are being burned, even if the synagogue is being graffiti. You stand up to protect, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in all of these places the name of Allah is mentioned often. Subhanallah. This is the morals of Islam. This is the traits of taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to ayah 110 and you reiterate وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to ayah 136. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to 139. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to 142. And He's giving you the traits and traits of taqwa. And it's interesting, the last verse to reveal to our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What do you think is the last word that Allah wants to say to His beloved before He departs from this world? What is it? What is it that Allah would want to say to His messenger? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The last verse to be revealed to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is ayah 281 fi Surah Al-Baqarah. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Have taqwa for that inevitable moment when you stand in front of your Lord. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. This is what we are after in this month of Ramadan. Taqwa. Now, if you look at all the traits of taqwa, and if I ask you now, after listening to the khutbah, what do you think is the strongest of traits of taqwa? The strongest of traits of taqwa is how the Quran begins. To believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything else that you do doesn't matter. You must believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see that many of the previous faiths are saying that we don't believe, mainstream, we don't believe in God. If you go to some of the churches, some of the houses of worship, and ask them, they say they don't believe in God. That God can be a woman, God can be a man, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, interestingly, that in this third chapter in Surah Al-Imran, he defined who he is, isn't it? Before he goes back to the Quran. He says, Allahu la ilaha illa wal hayyul qayyum. Then he goes back to the Quran. نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل. Who is Allah? They say Allah can be a woman. A'udhu billah. They say Allah can be a man. Allah can be neutral. Allah can be anything. Really. Mainstream churches across America. If you go ask them their theology, this is what it is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the eyes cannot perceive what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Allah says, there's nothing like him. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. And if you want the concise definition of Allah, then we have to go to what? Qul huwa Allahu ahad. He's ahad. He's samad. He's lam yalid, lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. This word samad alone, as-samadu. Allah is free from all wants and needs. As-sad has its own definition. Al-mim has its own definition. As-dal has its own definition. Every single letter in Surah Al-Ikhlas have a definition. As-sad, as-samadu, as-sadiq, he is truthful. As-sadiq wal-amin, the title of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mim al-malik, he is the malik. Every single letter has a definition that there's nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot define Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The eyes he doesn't have a hands. He doesn't have a shin. You cannot define Allah. He's not Qul huwa Allahu ahad. He is not one. Because one you can define. There's nothing like him. He's not wahid. He's ahad. If you can define something, then it's limited, isn't it? If I tell you to define an orange, you will eventually run out of words to describe that orange. So that orange is limited. And anything that you can define occupies space, isn't it? And anything that you can define and occupy space, and that is limited, ought not to be worshipped. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no anthropomorphic quality to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. So the first trait of taqwa is to believe in what? In al-ghayb, in the unseen. The second trait of taqwa will surprise many of you. The second trait of taqwa is to do good to others. Subhanallah. Do good to others. What good is it that you fill the masjid in Ramadan? What good is it that you will see in the last 10 nights? There's no room for the musalli in the masjid. It's packed. I was just asking Brother Iqbal if we can use that outside space for people to pray. He said, yes, they're making accommodation, alhamdulillah, and we should support that cause in whatever way we can in this month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. Because we see, look behind me, we see that the brothers is distracting, telling me to tell the brothers to come forward, please come forward and make room for your brothers in the back. And on a serious note, I mean this, please come forward. Please come forward and make room for your brothers in the back. This. Please don't speak, brother, in the khutbah. Please come forward and make room for your brothers in the back. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our community that we can build another floor, build another wing to the masjid to accommodate for the brothers and sisters in Ramadan, inshallah, and Eid. And we hope that during the year, the masjid, we can stand in the khutbah and say the same thing, come forward so we can make rooms for the brothers in the back, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every month and every day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not the Allah of Ramadan alone. Please come forward, my dear brothers and sisters. Please make room for your brothers in the back. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. The second trait of taqwa is to do good to others. What is it that you will come here and beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you when you haven't rectified your affairs with your brothers and sisters? That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the harshest word the harshest ayah, one of the most, contentious surah in the Quran, pointing very, very aggressive, strong language, is Surah Al-Ma'un. And in the center of the surah, the essence of Surah Al-Ma'un is what? فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Woe to you who pray. Woe to you who pray. You come to pray, to ask of me, but you haven't rectified your affairs with each other. You have this nasty feelings about each other. We give this big hug and say, Assalamu alaikum, but we're ready to stab someone in the back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the second trait of taqwa is to rectify your affairs with each other, be good to each other. Then aqimus salah. Then wa'atus zakah. Then the next right is give each other your rights, strengthening the second trait of taqwa. But what is this taqwa? How can we really, understand what this taqwa? And I use the example of taqwa. Right now, I'm very thirsty. Normally, on this member, there's 2 bottles of water. There's 2 bottles of water. I drink before I start the khutbah. I drink in the second khutbah. But what is it that's preventing me from not drinking? What is it that you're so hungry after the masjid, after the Jumu'ah? There's usually food outside. After the Jumu'ah, usually we go to the restaurant and have lunch. But what is it that's preventing me not to eat? You see, in this body, there's a hormone that gets secreted from the stomach called ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. This, when you're hungry, the body secretes ghrelin, send a message to the hypothalamus telling you that, listen, you need to eat. You're going to go into crisis. You're hypoglycemic. You're going to faint, diabetic patient. You get this feeling. You got to go drink some orange juice. Get the blood sugar back up. This ghrelin hormone is very powerful. If you can find a drug or some kind of therapy, we would billion-dollar company. Because one of the problems in the world is what? Obesity. Right? We eat and eat and eat. We can't control the ghrelin. The ghrelin is telling you eat. And the other hormone, leptin, is saying, listen, you gotta stop eating. But ghrelin doesn't listen to leptin. Ghrelin just eat. That's how powerful the eating hormone, the hunger hormone is. But when at 2 o'clock today, 3 o'clock today, when you're so hungry and thirsty, what is it that's telling this ghrelin to listen, take it easy? What is it that's suppressing this ghrelin? What is it that's saying that I'm not going to eat? It is the qalb. The heart comes, and the heart sends the message to the brain. When the ghrelin is sending to the brain, let's eat thirsty, the heart comes, and the heart says no. The heart is where the center of taqwa is. This is where taqwa is in the heart. Because at the end of Ramadan, what is our goal? Is to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says nothing else matters in this world except a heart that is qalbin salim. That is qalbin salim. We pray that every heart of every ummah to Rasulullah, every Muslim, every mu'min to return to Allah, our fathers, our mothers, our children, our brothers and sisters, to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a heart that's qalbin salim. It's the heart that will come. This heart that sends message, we now find out when Allah is telling us, when Rasulullah is telling us that it is the Quran that came to the heart. It never came to the mind. It never comes to the central nervous system. 6 weeks in the womb of your mother, the heart begins to beat without the creation of the central nervous system. Before a brain in the fetus, in your mother's womb, the heart is beating. If you take the heart out and you put it on this member, it will beat on its own. My dear beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a heart that is qalbin salim, a heart of taqwa, a heart that not only after Ramadan, where what is halal become prohibited for us, that we don't go after the prohibited things outside of Ramadan, that our heart has the taqwa in order to fight all those prohibitions outside of Ramadan, not only in Ramadan. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fasting or siyam on this blessed month of Ramadan. هو الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mighty, is majestic, is magnificent. He's وَرَبَّكَ تَكَبِّرْ. He's above all which is ascribed unto him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is salam. He is peace. My dear beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses us in the Quran when He addresses us as the believers now about taqwa, where He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Again, He's making reference to the people that fasted before you, that it's been legislated to you to fast so that you may attain taqwa. Then Allah goes to the next ayah again and telling you specifically of the fasting about the previous people before He comes to the fasting of the Muslims. He says, أَيَّامُ مَعْدُودَاتٍ, that they fast for just few days. And this is an ayah of miracle in the Quran. If you go ask the Jews and Christians how many days they fast, no other nation, no other people fasted 30 days. They fast for a few days. Allah used the minimal quote, أَيَّامُ مَعْدُودَاتٍ, for less than 11 days. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيدًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ, that if they're sick or traveling, they're exempt. Then He gives them another privilege. Why? Because they're Bani Israel. He gives them another privilege that He doesn't give you. And that's why He says, يَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَتِيَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ. I've bestowed upon you favors. I've فَضَّلْتُكُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. I've given you excellence above all of creation. Here is the excellence in the fasting. He says to them, وَلِتُؤْمِنُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ. He says that if you don't want to fast, if they don't want to fast, then they give the fidya to miskin and they get the reward of fasting. Subhanallah. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيدًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And they get the blessing of fasting. You can't do that. You can't do that unless you're sick. Terminal sickness, you don't have that exemption. But hear what Allah tells them in the end of the ayah. He says, فَمَنْ تَتَوَّأَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If you only know what's good for you, if you only know what's better for you, if you only know what's best for you, you will fast if you're people of intellect. Subhanallah. When Allah comes to us now, He says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل في القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. Then He says you're exempt if you're traveling or sick. Now what's supposed to follow here? The privilege that was given to them. Allah take that out. Instead what He says يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم. He wants ease for us. He take out that benefit that they give them and then He says He wants ease for us. Why does He say this? Then He says, وَلِتُؤْمِنُوا الْعِدَّةَ. When you finish counting the days, today is the 5th day of fasting. We count the days. When you finish counting the days, then you declare, وَلِتُؤْمِنُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Give thanks to Allah and declare, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi alhamd. That's what we do at the end of Ramadan, isn't it? But I want to close on this ayah. The next ayah, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finished talking about Ramadan, He says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. Ya Rasulullah, when they ask of me, don't answer. Let me answer my abd directly. I want to answer every person that's calling to me directly. What is the answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want to give us? Allah want to tell us, in this month of Ramadan, He is near to us. He is qareeb. It doesn't matter how strong your taqwa is in the heart. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qareeb, come from the word wareed. It's an artery, it's a vein that brings consciousness from one organ to the next organ. That Allah is intercepting this vein here. The consciousness are coming from the heart. Allah is closer to it in the messaging to your brain. So Allah is the one that comes and tell the brain, you don't eat. That is the essence of taqwa. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He is closer to us in Ramadan. That Allah is the one that comes to the heart and tell the brain, no, I have to eat at 7 today. I don't care what the body is saying. I don't care what the desire is. The desire to gamble and smoke and drink and lies. I don't care what that desire is. Allah is within my qalb. Allah is going to come and subjugate and suppress that desire and avert that desire. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. Allah is the one. When you remember Allah, He will come and He will avert. You have to have taqwa. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of He giving you Ummah Rasulullah, that you have the option to feed a fidya, He said instead He wants ease for you. Because when you have taqwa, everything else becomes easy for you. Even the most difficult thing. Even the most strongest of desire become easy for you. Because you are ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, I would like to appeal. This is a month of Ramadan, isn't it? A month of blessing. And the traits of taqwa, as we highlighted, the first trait is to believe in Allah. The second trait is to do good to others. And the third trait is to take care of the poor and the needy. Make sure that you use our masjid, the place where you come to pray, to give your sadaqatul fitr. And try to do it as early as possible. Try to do it. You know, the people that do the sadaqah first, I get a feeling like they're saying, Ya Allah, I don't know if I'll see the end of Ramadan, so I want to take care of my sadaqah now. Ya Allah, I want to take care of my sadaqah. I want to give this $15, so the sadaqah goes to the poor and needy. Every Ramadan, the people have to ask, please bring your sadaqah early so we have time to give it to the miskin. Please bring your sadaqah before the next few days, inshallah. Make a commitment that the gift of your sadaqah will fit in the next few days. And also use our masjid, inshallah, to dispense your zakah into different places. Our masjid, the masjid gives zakah to many places. Use the masjid, inshallah. Start bringing your zakah, make intention to give your zakah, inshallah ta'ala, and to give to the masjid wherever you go. Support whatever cause you can. Support our brothers and sisters in Palestine. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, I appeal to you and I appeal to everyone. So often, so repeated, before Ramadan, that tonight, this afternoon, when you want to break your fast with that date, and we see that in any given masjid, we have so much food. So much food. Think about our brothers and sisters in Palestine. I saw they were praying the first Tarawih in Gaza. I don't know if you saw that video. They were praying, the Hafiz, the Imam was reciting, Surah Al-Baqarah, the first Tarawih in Gaza, with mats, whatever they can harness, mats to make it shower. That their resilience is to the world, that this heart cannot be breaking if it has taqwa. If this heart has taqwa, it doesn't matter if the bomb comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't matter. This is the resilience of our brothers and sisters who have nothing. As if I can say, Ya Allah, whatever we will have tonight, give half, give 2/3 to the people of Gaza, and we will still have enough. Wallahi, we will still have enough. Remember them in your dua. That's the most powerful thing you can do in this month of Ramadan. Remember them at that moment when you're breaking your fast. Stop all talking, all conversation. Stop whatever. You will get your food. It will come to your dates will come to you. Just make dua. Close your eyes and make dua. Like we will make dua now for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them victory in this month of Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring victory to this ummah of Rasulullah in this month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberate each and everyone who are being oppressed all parts of the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy these zalims, these criminals. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring victory to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Palestine, our brothers and sisters in Kashmir, our brothers and sisters in Hind, our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, in Sudan, in all parts of the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your dua, my dua, and every dua of every supplicant on this month of Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends the ayah by saying, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. All He wants from us in this month of Ramadan is to try our best. Please try your best in this month of Ramadan. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما اعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت وإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بعد الله والمسلمين.
Brothers, let us come up as close as possible so that others can get in. We're going to the Salah now, so make room for the others, please.